I remember back in 2014, I was on this 51 TTC bus going from Eglinton subway station back home, and I was looking out these windows and I kept seeing these construction posters that said Eglinton Crosstown is now under construction. Now the thing is, it has been more than 11 years since that moment, and Eglinton Crosstown is supposed to be this pretty major transit line, and it's still not operational, even today in 2025. In fact, it's currently October 2025, and when the current CEO of Metrolinx, which is the agency that is supposed to build this line, was asked a very simple question by one of the reporters, this was his answer.
Will the Eglinton Crosstown open by the end of the year? Yes or no, please?
The answer to your question is we hope yes.
So we hope yes was kind of the best answer that Michael Lindsay could give, the CEO of Metrolinx. And that kind of comes from a person who makes $687,000 a year, with a potential performance bonus for 2025 in the amount of $137,000. Now, this is just a very small tip of the iceberg. And so, to try to understand how it took the city more than 18 years since the line's conception in 2007, and more than $14 billion to build just 19 kilometers of transit, I decided to conduct my own tiny little mini investigation to see all of the people and companies involved here, because I think millions of tax dollars went from kind of my paycheck and even your paycheck if you're Canadian and watching this video to fund this line. Well, everything started right over here with this project called Transit City. And so Transit City was announced by the then Toronto Mayor, David Miller, and the TTC, the Toronto Transit Commission, actually on March 16th, 2007, so quite a while ago. David and the TTC, they said, hey, Toronto needs a lot of brand new transit. Not just regular transit, but 120 kilometers of LRT. Now, LRT stands for Light Rail Transit, and it's kind of almost like subway, but LRTs use a much smaller vehicle to transport people in, kind of like a streetcar. Their tracks can go down the middle of kind of regular streets, so traffic can be on either side. LRTs can go both above and below ground, and in general, they're just a bit cheaper to build than actual subways. Now, this is the map of Toronto's subway system in 2007. So it has about 70 kilometers worth of kind of usable lines. Definitely not a lot. David and the TTC, they said that we need 7 brand new LRTs that will all connect to the existing subway system. And those 7 LRTs were Eglinton Crosstown LRT, Jane LRT, Waterfront West, Etobicoke Finch West, Don Mills, Shepherd East, and Scarborough Malvern. And they estimated it will cost roughly $6 billion to build, and it will take 15 years. And so that whole plan, Transit City, will connect virtually every neighborhood in the city. Now, before getting any shovels in the ground, somebody has to review these projects and somebody has to take a lead, right? So lucky for us though, in 2006, Ontario created its own crown agency that will be in charge of kind of developing these big transportation projects. They called it the Greater Toronto Transportation Authority, or the GTTA for short. But it didn't quite have a ring to it, maybe from like a marketing perspective. So in 2007, they renamed it to Metrolinx. And so Metrolinx was now kind of in charge of reviewing these projects and essentially paving the way for Toronto's, transportation future. And they took their time to review Transit City, a bit more than a year. I understand why. We were now in the middle of a pretty big 2008 financial crisis. But finally, actually, it was November 28th, 2008, Metrolinx took everything kind of into consideration and they published their own paper. It was called The Big Move. So the Big Move was big because it did not just incorporate Toronto's needs, it actually incorporated the needs of the entire GTA, or the Greater Toronto Area. Metrolinx said, hey, the GTA needs to update its roads, cycling paths, bridges, and of course, transit. And so for that, we need $50 billion. As part of that plan, the big move that included roads and bridges, of course, a part of the transit city was also implemented. But unfortunately, not all 7 LRTs got funded. Instead, Metrolinx proposed to prioritize building Eglinton Crosstown LRT, and it will spend $4.6 billion for that. Finch West LRT, it will build it for $1.2 billion. $1.4 billion, interestingly enough, will actually go to the existing line. So it was already in operation, called Scarborough RT, or Scarborough Rapid Transit. So they wanted to spend $1.4 billion to kind of upgrade and make it better. And also they wanted, so Metrolinx wanted to build another line, Shepherd East. And they said that the cost of that line will be in the ballpark of $950 million. And since Shepherd East LRT was the only line out of the entire plan that actually went through all environmental checks and everything, construction, so on the very first line from the Transit City project, started right behind me back in December of 2009 at the site of Agincourt GO station. And actually this overpass was also built to meet the needs of the future LRT line. And so you would think that it will only be a matter of time before all the other lines will go through all of the checks, and they should also start getting built, right? Well, a bit of a spoiler alert here, but Shepherd East will never end up being built. Eglinton Crosstown will only start getting built in 2011, and Finch West LRT will start getting built in 2019. So I guess the question is, what happened? On March 26, 2010, so this person, Ontario Finance Minister Dwight Duncan, he said that, we're just coming out of a pretty big financial crisis and there's a huge deficit. There's basically no money to fund these cool and ambitious transit projects. David was furious, but he kind of had no say here. And so Dwight essentially pushed Metrolinx to start saving money that were originally promised for the development of, kind of the big move and Transit City. And he said that the Metrolinx needed to save about $4 billion. And so Metrolinx said that Eglinton Crosstown and Finch West LRTs will be postponed by at least 2 years. Eglinton Crosstown was now also being split into 2 phases. So phase 1 will open first. It will run from Kennedy subway station to the area of Jane. And phase 2 will be built and it will open much later. And it will run from Jane to hopefully the area of the Toronto Pearson International Airport. Finch West LRT also unfortunately got shortened. Originally it was supposed to run from Humber College to Finch subway station, but now it was only going to run from Humber College to the future site of Finch West subway station. And our own subway was now also kind of being extended by a few stations, so that's why Finch West LRT could be shortened. But I'm looking at these developments and I'm sort of okay with them. I mean, who am I to say, right? But things always change and you need to adjust to them. I mean, who knew that the crisis of 2008 was going to hit us? I mean, some people definitely knew, but at least things were moving, and I think they were moving in the right direction. Budgets were being shifted, the momentum was there. By now, it was the summer, a very warm summer of 2010, and people were enjoying themselves. It was the very first summer where people could actually buy an iPad. It was also summer of 2010 when Toronto hosted G20, and so that went, well, here. Yeah, I mean, that could have gone better. Anyways, in 2010, so it was a year with a lot of events. It was the year when Toronto had to choose their brand new mayor. About that time, there was a very interesting person in the lead, and that person was about to destroy all of these plans, to derail these plans, and set us back by at least a few years.
Please welcome Mayor Rob Ford.
doing amazing. How are you?
I'm doing well. Why are you dressed like a magician?
So that's right. Mayor Rob Ford, he won 2010 Toronto mayoral elections. And I swear to God, on the very first day in office, it was December 1st, 2010, he said the following. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the war on car stops today. Transit City is over. We will not build any more rail tracks down the middle of our streets." Mr. Rob Ford hated the entire Transit City plan. He hated the concept of LRTs, but instead he had something else in mind.
This is the future of Toronto. Underground transit, subway expansion. Is this going to be done in 5-10 years? No, it won't be done. But this is what we have to plan for. The city is booming. The city is not going anywhere, friends. And we have to have someone with a vision of a long-term plan.
So what was that kind of long-term plan that Rob Ford pitched? He was really in favor of building actual subways, not LRTs. And so he wanted to expand Shepherd Subway, both west and east of Yonge. He wanted to put the entire Eglinton Crosstown LRT underground and actually connect Scarborough Rapid Transit Line to it so that people could go from west all the way to Scarborough easily. And he also pushed for the development of DRL, or the Downtown Relief Line, that the city so badly needed. You know, he was now facing a bit of a problem. The thing is, Shepherd East LRT was already being built. What do? Do you just cancel it? Like, how are you going to deal with this? And so that was one of the very first questions that Rob Ford had to answer. And unfortunately, he didn't quite know what to do with construction over here. He just started to cancel things, and now the city owed Metrolinx about $65 million in various cancellation costs. And so, of course, Toronto hated it. But now, Mr. Ford started getting opposition from various people as well. And one of those people who opposed Mr. Ford's vision was the TTC's Chief General Manager, Gary Webster. And he said, "Hey, Mr. Ford, I'm not going to greenlight any of your plans." And Mr. Ford was livid, to the point where he pulled some strings, and Gary was fired from his job by the board of the TTC. But not everybody was kind of against Gary. There was another chair on the TTC board. Her name was Karen Stintz, and she was trying to come to some sort of a compromise. And she said, "Hey, how about we still build those LRTs? They're going to be a bit cheaper, but we still try to realize at least a portion of Mr. Ford's plan. So we try to channel some of those savings from LRTs into the development of Shepherd Subway." And so while she was trying to do that, actually on March 22nd, 2012, the city published a pretty comprehensive report. And that report said that building LRTs in general is going to be just much more efficient, cheaper, and easier to maintain. And that got put to a vote in the city hall. And that vote passed 24-19. So that essentially meant that Rob Ford got defeated. And he tried to appeal, but he was unsuccessful.
The Premier, I'm very confident, is going to build subways. Technically speaking, that whole meeting was irrelevant.
That meant that it was now 2012, and we kind of did a full circle back to the original to the original Transit City plan. So Toronto City Councillors voted still for the development of LRTs rather than subway. So 5 years passed, and we wasted quite a lot of time on just simple politics. And after Rob Ford, he got kind of more and more ousted from a bunch of these transit dealings. On November 28th, 2012, TTC and Metrolinx made an announcement. They basically said that Metrolinx would be fully in charge of DBFMing, designing, building, maintaining, and financing all of these transit lines. And TTC will be fully in charge of operating those lines as soon as they are ready. And Metrolinx will build these LRTs through a system called AFP, or Alternative Financing and Procurement. In simple terms, it basically means that Metrolinx, which is an Ontario agency, it will hire private companies to build projects for the public. On July 24th, 2015, Metrolinx announced their pick to develop Eglinton LRT. It will actually be a group of 4 companies, and they call this group Crosslinx. Now, Crosslinx, which is a very original name, by the way, Crosslinx will consist of 4 companies. This Spanish company called ACS Dragados, Canadian companies Aecon and Ellisdon, and also a Canadian company called SNC Lavalin. Now, a very interesting company because SNC from 2001 to 2011 was bribing a government of Libya to get some of very good and lucrative contracts. Now, they got caught, they had to be prosecuted, but a lot of Canadian people were working at this company, and Justin Trudeau kind of realized that a lot of Canadian people were going to lose their jobs. SNC will not be able to bid on North American projects as well, and so he saved the company from prosecution. It was its own scandal, but it was a disaster. It was a whole story in itself. But SNC got renamed to a brand new company called Atkins Realis. So looks like it was a bit of a fresh start for them. So Crosslinx consisted of these 4 different companies now. By now, unfortunately, Shepherd East LRT was put fully on hold because Metrolinx was really trying to figure out how to build just a single line. They also started looking into some project management, and so they needed to start overseeing what different people were doing. And they decided that they needed consultants. They actually needed 50 consultants. That's at least some of the reports are saying that they hired 50 consultants to oversee this project. And so they went to this company called CH2M. Now, CH2M is actually another group of companies, 3 of them. They were called Boxfish, Comtech, it got later acquired by Accenture, and Turner and Townsend. We don't really know how much Metrolinx actually paid for these consultants. We do know that there were roughly $350 million in different consultancy fees. But then, in 2018, Metrolinx got audited, and the Auditor General of Ontario said this: "At the time of our audit, Metrolinx staff overseeing consultants did not adequately check that consultants performed the work to support the hours charged on their invoices," which basically meant that Metrolinx was paying quite a lot of money to consultants, and nobody really knew what they were doing. Additionally, this company, Boxfish, this is the owner. So Brian Guest is the owner of Boxfish. In 2018, he became one of the VPs of Metrolinx, so vice presidents. And during his tenure, he got at least 2 contracts with Metrolinx to his company, Boxfish. In my mind, a bit of a conflict of interest, right? But of course, Metrolinx and Boxfish, they denied everything. Eventually, they parted their ways. But talk about some just weird shenanigans happening. Now, while this group of companies, so while Crosslinx was actually trying to actively build Eglinton Crosstown LRT, Metrolinx had a different problem. So when this line is going to be built, they needed to find a vehicle to actually run on it. Now it's time to talk about this Canadian company called Bombardier. The thing is, Bombardier received an order for 182 vehicles called Flexity. So right over here, this is the actual Flexity vehicle. But the problem with that order was that it was received by Bombardier, so Metrolinx placed that order way too early. It was done in June of 2010. When these different political things were happening, Metrolinx realized that order was placed a bit too early, and they asked Bombardier to defer some of those vehicles. Bombardier was like, yeah, cool, no problems, but that is going to cost you. Metrolinx paid about $19 million in some of those deferral fees. Now, that was entirely due to politics, right? But Metrolinx still expected that the very first vehicle from Bombardier would be received by 2015. Now, 2015 arrived and passed. 2016 arrived and passed. And finally, it was actually May of 2017, the very first Bombardier Flexity vehicle arrived to Metrolinx. Metrolinx was like, okay, thanks, cool, but they kind of lost their confidence in Bombardier. They said, okay, how about we reduce the order from 182 vehicles to just 76? We also tightened some of those deadlines and some of those, kind of late fees. And how about, Metrolinx was saying, how about we develop a bit of a plan B situation in case these vehicles don't come on time? And so Metrolinx initially they went to Bombardier, so Bombardier couldn't quite deliver. And so Metrolinx went to France. They went to this French company called Alstom. And they asked Alstom, hey, can you please give us 61 vehicles called Citadis Spirit? Alstom was like, yeah, cool, no problems. So this became Metrolinx's plan B. Eventually though, and luckily, Bombardier was able to recover. And so they did deliver all 76 vehicles by March 28, 2022. In that time frame though, Bombardier was kind of struggling. Alstom saw this and they were like, oh, you know what? We want to kind of expand our North American footprint. And so Alstom completely bought out Bombardier for $5.5 billion. So that's why you might see on these Flexity vehicles that were made by Bombardier kind of a logo that says Alstom on the side. These vehicles are made fully by Alstom, so you see how the design is a little bit different. It looks like, again, this was figured out and it was now only a matter of time before Eglinton LRT was going to open, right? Well, not really, because it was now 2018 and Crosslinx decided to sue Metrolinx. They basically said that Metrolinx didn't do their job correctly with a bunch of utility relocations and they needed a 1-year extension. But the problem was that Metrolinx, in all of their PR materials and marketing materials, they said that Eglinton Crosstown LRT was going to open in 2021. And Metrolinx pushed. They were like, okay, how about we give you, Crosslinx, an additional $237 million and you still commit to that deadline. Crosslinx was like, okay, cool, we're going to keep on building. But this happened. It was now March 2020. And COVID hit Canada. And COVID hit Canada hard. I mean, my wife and I, we were here, we spent a lot of time in lockdowns, and of course it affected Eglinton Crosstown LRT as well. To the point where Crosslinx decided to sue Metrolinx again for the second time. They said, due to COVID-19, we accrued a lot of extra costs. So they said that they basically needed more time and money, but Metrolinx said that Crosslinx was already falling behind even before COVID-19 was a thing. But after Crosslinx sued Metrolinx, they actually won in Ontario Superior Court. They won an additional compensation of roughly $325 million. They were also kind of approved to develop and build and deliver most of the line to Metrolinx by 2022. But by September 2022, Metrolinx made an announcement that Crosslinx was going through a lot of difficulties in regards to tunneling underneath Eglinton subway station, and so basically the line was not going to open by 2022. About 6 months later, in April 2023, Phil Verster, who was the CEO of Metrolinx back then, he said that the line also could not open even in 2023 because Crosslinx was now being held accountable to about 260 different deficiencies. And the biggest problem that they saw was that some of the tracks were improperly kind of put down to the point where they were off by a few millimeters, and that risked a derailment. Now, a full year passed, and on March 25th, 2024, Phil Verster said that most of the construction was now complete, but they had a different problem. Now they had a lot of software glitches, and so that had to be rectified first before they could proceed any further. And we now fast forward to June of 2025, and the CEOs of Metrolinx changed from Phil Verster to Michael Lindsay. And in June of 2025, Michael Lindsay said that when they tried to put these Flexity vehicles into the real world, they saw that they were now experiencing the signs of wear and tear. It basically showed signs that it was already transporting people, even though by now it hasn't transported a single soul on board. So what is the latest status here? Well, I just recently got the news on my phone saying that as of October 7th, 2025, Eglinton LRT officially started its 30-day Revenue Service Demonstration, or RSD for short. Now, RSD is still a test, and it needs to pass it. But essentially that test means that the line should function normally and safely for the period of 30 days. Now, even though we know that RSD started on October 7th, 2025, and we know that it's supposed to last for 30 days exactly, Metrolinx still hasn't committed to any specific opening dates, which, you know, they probably might think that they might still find more issues down the line, and I hope they won't. And finally, I have a bit of a request for you. If you are out there in the future, and maybe you're watching this video on your phone, and Eglinton LRT Line 5 is open, and you're riding in one of those Flexity vehicles, feel free to leave a comment down below. Because I think a lot of Torontonians thought that Eglinton LRT will never open. But I hope it will open one day, right? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Feel free to subscribe, feel free to like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.